Good afternoon and welcome to this special edition of the Federal Executive Forum, now celebrating 20 years of profiling IT mission programs in the federal government. This is our annual fifth Profiles in Excellence Chief Information Security Officer program, which will be coming to you from the virtual studios of WTOP and the Federal News Network. I'm Luke McCormack, and during today's show, we will discuss cybersecurity trends and strategies at numerous government agencies and hear from the key leaders making them happen. With me on this show are Scott Davis, Chief Information Security Officer and Executive Director of Cybersecurity Directorate, U.S. Customs and Border Protection; Nate Fontaine, Acting Chief Information Security Officer, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement; Larry Palkendo, Associate Director, Security Solutions Architects, Verizon; Mitch Herkus, Global Head of Government Affairs at Wiz; and Greg Carl, Principal Technologist at Pure Storage. Scott, we're going to start with you. Your area of responsibility is massive. It's global. And your Chief Information Officer makes no mistake about it. Security is job one. You've got a lot of new technology that you're introducing over there. 24/7, 365. Makes my head spin, Scott. Give us a state-of-state top line on where you stand right now in regards to that environment.
Good afternoon, Luke, and thanks again for the invitation. Love to speak about CBP, what we're doing with cybersecurity. So a couple of years ago, as you know, OMB put out the memorandum that talked about zero trust architecture. So we started that. We finished up meeting the milestones for FY24. We're well into it for FY25. There's long poles in the tent, data being the probably most difficult one for most agencies to get implemented. So that pillar is going to be a challenge over the next couple of years, but we're still moving along that road. One of the other things that we're looking at is, it's a mouthful, post-quantum cryptography. See, I stumbled there saying it myself. So PQC is an easier way of saying it. So we've been talking about the line in the sand, and it keeps moving closer for us to get through to make sure that our cryptography is where it needs to be. And so we're working with our infrastructure deputy assistant commissioner and deputy CIO, Dr. Ed Mays, as well as our chief technology officer. We're going to do proofs of concept. We're going to get stuff implemented. We'll have a project kicking off to make sure that we are PQC protected and compliant. So that's another area that we're looking at. We're also moving towards a better posture for systems and cybersecurity risk posture. So cyber supply chain, that's another area that we're focusing on as well. And then we're moving into a program for insider threat. Not that we have a bunch of people doing nefarious things, but we want to make sure that while we're busy, we're not clicking on the wrong links, sending a exploited package, that we're making sure that we're protected as much as possible. So those are a few of the different programs that we're working on. And then, of course, one of the most prevalent things we have to continue to do is education. So our workforce is our most important resource. It's also one of the things that only takes one: clicking on the wrong link, like I was talking about, doing the wrong thing, going to the wrong site, working on something that they're not authorized to, whether it's intended or not. We want to make sure that people are protected from themselves as well. So insider threat program is probably in our next year to 2 years. We're working with DHS headquarters on a program for user activity monitoring and things of that nature. But we've got other segments that we're putting in place as well. So those are some of the high level topics that we're working on. Love to hear more from ICE and some of our partners as well of what they're working on in those areas.
Absolutely. A lot of moving parts there. PQC, it's like an arms race out there. And look, when you have tens of thousands of employees, you need to make sure some of that internal capability is being metered properly. So hats off to you all and all that you're doing to keep this nation protected. Nate, I know that you all are got a lot of moving parts over there as well. A lot of activity going on over there. Every time you turn the news on, you see it. Give us a top line state of the state as to how you all are doing in regards to hardening that environment, keeping up with all these various activities you have underway over there.
Absolutely. So, Luke, thanks again for the invite here. I'm great an opportunity to share a little more about what Immigration and Customs Enforcement is doing. Similar to what Scott Davis is doing, right? We sit the CISO Council at DHS, so we're a lot of alignment of where we're headed. The zero trust roadmaps are still well underway. Post quantum encryption, we're still tracking as well. But really for ourselves, because of the investment and the mission administration change and the mission importance of what ICE does, we now have had a significant number of interconnections and new agreements that have been made with many law enforcement partners, local, state level, as well as across the federal government. So being able to monitor and inspect that traffic coming through, ensure that the folks are getting the right access at the right time for what they need to do to enable the mission to go forward is critically important for us. So right now, revisiting some of the identity pieces, looking at some of the capabilities with business to business, B2B connections overall between ourselves, other federal partners, again, local, state officials, even international partners with the Five Eyes agencies as well. Finding creative ways to enable that workforce out there, the men and women on the front lines doing the enforcement activities across the country. Along with that comes some of the topics that Scott had mentioned a few moments ago around data, right? Data is critically important in ensuring that the right folks have the right access at the right time to do what they need to do. So the data strategies are important. One piece that it wouldn't be a tech conversation without a discussion around AI as well, but I'm excited to see, and we're stepping into some of the new spaces around utilizing artificial intelligence and machine learning to enhance our threat detection and capabilities, right? Over the past few months, we've seen a significant ramp up in the pace of adversaries exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities. So being able to enable our frontline defenders and our security operations centers and our NOCs to be able to identify threats faster, collect the information from our vast array of telemetry and sensors that we have coming in, being able to synthesize that, put that in a common operating picture to enable that tier one operator on the SOC floor to action things faster and not have to go through multiple different sets of data and applications to figure out what's happening, to hand that off to tier two and tier three. We're not looking to use AI to replace tier one. We're looking for AI in particular to do that machine learning, that threat intelligence, to enable tier one to do bigger, what I call gray matter thinking, right? Bigger ideas, bigger processes, enable them to go further in their current capabilities. So similar conversations between Scott and I, but I think AI was the only piece I would add in there around enabling our security operations centers and NOC folks to action information faster.
Absolutely, force multiplier, and good catch on that secondary and tertiary systems as you connect those state and locals. We all learned the hard way from OMB about those secondary systems not being secured and what that can mean. So hats off to you all for really focusing your attention on that. Larry, how about at Verizon? You've got a lot of moving parts over there. You all are right smack in the middle of this ecosystem, enabling these agencies to protect this country. Give us a top line. What are you seeing from the Verizon perspective?
Luke, yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me be part of this discussion with
Our pleasure.
this distinguished panel. So yeah, so we as Verizon are enabler, right? So we're on the EIS contract and we're here to help the agencies meet their missions. A typical day or typical discussion for us around cybersecurity usually starts with a question or a statement from a lot of the agencies. That's usually around a framework question. How can I be zero trust enabled? How can I be TIC 3.0 compliant or trusted internet connection compliant? And then usually, again, depending on the size of the agency, how much they really know or don't know, it usually requires us to do a little investigative work, a little digging into really getting down to their use cases. That really leads us to questions and statements and then solutions around SASE, so Secure Access Surface Edge. We're talking about SD-WAN from a network perspective. We're talking about Secure Service Edge from a security use case perspective. Then we get into solutions and talks around identity, since identity, in my mind, is kind of the cornerstone and really the backbone of getting to a zero trust implementation that has a strong identity practice. So identity and privileged access management are topics that will usually go around. Then you've got the typical stuff around endpoint detection and response, distributed denial of service, managed detection and response. So whether we need to come with a full solution or help and do a co-managed solution with the agencies is very important. I think that was discussed around just understanding the data. And then last but not least, to kind of round out the top 10 of the Verizon portfolio of things, vulnerability scanning, red team, tabletop exercises, penetration testing, and then really getting into incident response, proactive and reactive are kind of all the general topics that we are bouncing around day to day to help the agencies.
Absolutely. And that strong annual report that you all do that everyone looks forward to reading. And you brought up identity, and boy, we know that's where the sin starts. So appreciate highlighting that as well. Mitch, Wiz is on the scene, really penetrating into the federal market, if you will, so to speak, and really making a stance in regards to protecting these environments. Give us a top line as to how all that is going at this point, and where does Wiz see themselves in regards to this whole overall ecosystem?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Thanks for having me today. Many people are less familiar with Wiz than our friends at Verizon. Obviously, we've been around a little bit shorter of a time. We were only a 5-year-old company and change, but we're among the fastest growing software companies in the world. We've protect about half of the Fortune 100, and have started working with a lot of our partners in the federal government. What we do is really protect everything people build and maintain in the cloud, as well as complex systems in general, and that includes hybrid and AI systems. So from our standpoint, one of the things that I observed as a former Fed and in my job now is that, particularly in cloud, there are some complexities, particularly trying to get to those zero trust baselines that everybody's striving for. So from where we sit, we provide that foundational visibility and understanding of risk within those environments. That's critical to getting a more resilient, better system that can really be meeting those zero trust maturity goals that everyone's set for themselves. In addition, one of the core things that folks are really trying to make sure of is, as we adopt AI, which is another mandate that's really coming down from the White House, that they do have in place the right sort of tool sets to ensure those AI-enabled systems are really A, visible, but B, we understand across this complexity how to secure them, how to make them resilient. So those are the sort of things we're working on. We're also helping on the shift left side, as kind of was brought up earlier by Scott Davis and others. As people are developing in their environment, how do we move faster? How do we create a better CI/CD pipeline so people can really effectually and change these systems in a rapid manner while staying secure? We have a lot of compliance regimes within the federal government that help keep us safe, but often they've unfortunately acted as a barrier to getting things done. By reducing the drag on the compliance side and driving on the security by creating those assurances, we're able to help agencies move faster and develop faster and have more assurance in the security of their environment. So those are some of the key areas that we've found the most, impactful help working with our partners on the federal side, and it's been an exciting process.
We really appreciate all the activity that Wiz is underway with. Greg, how about at Pure Storage? I think about Pure Storage. I say, why do we have a storage organization on a cybersecurity talk show? Well, we know why. Greg, give us the top line as to where you all fit into this ecosystem.
Absolutely, Luke. I appreciate you having us one more time. So it's funny because data is what it's all about, right? And some folks I've heard on panels, et cetera, saying, ZTA really should have been called data-centric architecture, right? Because it's always talking about the layered models of how are we protecting the data. And what I'm also hearing from a lot of leaders is data is the most challenging pillar to how to check all the boxes for, right? Why? Because data is distributed everywhere these days, right? On personal devices, in the cloud, in the data center, all these different perimeters. So when you look at something like ZTA, being able to have a holistic solution that we can check the box for, but also be amendable over time, right? Because when you move from planning to strategy, right? Planning is what you can control and bespoke things you can deliver. Strategy is more about doing for the unknowns, exactly what ZTA is for, right? What can I do to mitigate the threat, to mitigate the risk, the human element, right? So when it comes to ZTA, we have a broad breadth of solutions that are helping customers achieve that data pillar checkoff. So We all mentioned AI, so I can check the box for me. I said AI on the form here, but in all seriousness, when we think about things like threat intelligence and intrinsic data intelligence, meaning can I understand and look at data patterns and understand something that might be happening, and what can I do with that information? Is maybe now I'm more proactive in responding to threats. Maybe in some cases I'm getting in front of a much larger attack. I mean, it could be domestic or foreign at this point. With some of the nastiest things we've seen from a data exfiltration perspective have started because we miss things at the data layer. So whether it's, hey, all of a sudden this giant set of files became encrypted, what happened there? Usually it's a sign of a terrible attack, and that's something we do intrinsically across our product line. And it's giving that consistency of data visibility and predictability is really what the value we kind of provide to a lot of customers. And of course, PQC, a personal, favorite topic of mine, right? This is definitely the ultimate of it's not a matter of if, when, and working with a lot of the agencies of saying, hey, I get asked about once a day. It's AI and it's PQC. What are you guys seeing? What are the ciphers that are acceptable? Are we going down the right path? And the great thing about being in the federal space, you get to talk to everybody in the federal space, right? So we've already gotten some highlights of, hey, we really want to make sure when you look at transport layers that we're fine tuning here, and we understand that AES 256 is okay because it's not just about data at rest. It's about data in flight, data in motion, generalized, data access on mobile devices, right? So again, it goes part of the larger security strategy, but this is why we always look at it from the data lens out. And we can always incorporate the other components to work with providers to give whole solutions versus bespoke products.
Absolutely, and we appreciate everything that you all are doing. Scott, you talked about a lot of different activities that you have going on there. I'd like you to just highlight one area that you'd like to illuminate for the listening audience, so to speak, that you're focusing your attention on there and your resources.
Sure. So Nate brought up AI. Greg just touched on it. So now it's my turn. So
Absolutely.
we're looking at a lot of things with AI, and so as you can imagine, for a cybersecurity organization, we're looking at how can we use AI to defend against AI. So it's everything from our tools to upskilling our folks, making sure that they understand how to work AI projects, how to utilize the AI tools that we already have, and then working with our vending partners, understanding when every IT vendor is now an AI vendor. So understanding, what does that mean? What do you provide? How is it integrated into your tool? How can we leverage it? Getting efficiencies, getting economies of scale. So working through a bunch of those different pieces and parts, having an understanding of how this works throughout the cybersecurity realm, and then also working across our Office of Information and Technology with, I mentioned the Deputy CIO for infrastructure. We've got a Deputy CIO for software and application services, as well as our Chief Technology Officer. We've got a Chief Data Officer. So there's a bunch of folks that are looking at AI. We have to make sure that we're all on the same page. Everything from policy to guardrails, integration, projects. Requirements is a huge thing. We've got to do a very good job of what are our requirements. If we don't have those right, we're going to miss the mark. So there's a lot of different things that we're working on, just AI focused. But the other part of it is we're dipping our toes in it. I don't want to jump into the deep end of the pool, at least not with certain things, because we got to get it right. It's a fast moving train. You've probably seen and heard we have a chat GPT like in chat CBP. So we're having guardrails in there so that the folks that are within CBP can utilize that. And it's bounded so that they're not able to sit there and pull out stuff from the World Wide Web. It's grounded with CBP information. So those are some of the things that our Chief Technology Officer has been working with my team for the cybersecurity component of it. But we have to make sure that we're getting it right so that we've protected the information, whether it's CBP information, the public's information, because we got a lot of that, trade information. We work a lot with the trades sector. So there's a bunch of different pieces that we've got to get right. And it comes down to the requirements and making sure that we're hitting those marks.
Super sensitive data that you all are housing over there, and it's a fast-moving train, a very powerful train. All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about cybersecurity. We have two powerhouse CISOs with us and some very powerful partners. Greg, let's talk to you about specifically highlighting an area that you'd like to illuminate for the listening audience.
Yeah. So one specific thing that we've kind of leaned into, especially the last year or so, is on top of, as agencies are adopting AI different ways, whether it be to adopting LLMs or bringing in different ways to adapt and modernize their data, is how do they have that consistency at scale from a security perspective, right? So having a consistent data services platform across any product in our portfolio is kind of our core security strategy, right? So the concept we've been talking a lot about is a concept of an enterprise data cloud, meaning I can access my own data no matter where it resides and operate with the agility and consistency of a cloud operating model. So what does that give us? So whether it's down to the ability to iterate into AI ML, to iterate into making sure our consistent security posture is maintained throughout every single data set, whether it's all the way down to a bespoke VDI session from a remote agent somewhere in doing something for the mission, or if it's a core data center service, you have consistency for your data at every single level, and you have immutability and accessibility, and really have a diverse posture to whatever threats may be coming up. So it's more about, having true agility for your data and accessibility, but most importantly, consistency, and having a cost model that gives predictability from year 1 to year 5 to year 10, so that as your strategy is going to change, and we all think everyone knows here it will, what we have today is going to be completely different in 3 years. How can we then maintain at that same pace? So it's consistency of data scalability at scale, but also more importantly, consistency of posture across your entire data landscape.
You talked about strategy changes, and I'm going to go up to Nate here. And, it's all hands on deck on interior enforcement and some other things that you all are doing over there that you've highlighted, Nate. Do you want to give a specific program, maybe perhaps, or a significant rollout of some capability that you'd like to make a point of?
Sure. So the perfect example of this, and like I talked about before, of enabling our frontline operators, the folks out there enforcing the mission space of the agency. One of the biggest things that you have, we talked about it before about the people and CISOs in the past. Hopefully nobody's still under the old model of the office of no, right? You have to be in the office of enabling the folks doing the work, but you also have to look at ways of maybe you're implementing something that is causing friction across the workforce and unintended friction, right? And that friction is usually what causes breaches or causes incidents later on down that path, right? So if we can make it easier for them to do their job, it's going to be easier for them to do it the way we'd like them to, right? Enable them to use the security the way it's supposed to be done. If you can make it transparent to them, it's even easier for them to follow that path. So a couple of years ago, we transitioned over to Secure Access Service Edge, right, from a traditional VPN solution. And what that did is we actually had agents in the field come back and say, hey, you got rid of VPN. How are you guys even securing the mission? How are you all even doing this? And we would tell them, no, you're still connected. You're still secured. But to them, it was completely transparent. They were no longer having to carry around either RSA tokens or other factors to log into a VPN solution. Whenever they connected to the internet, they were being protected, both internally as well as externally, and what that traffic looks like and what they have access to. So that Secure Access Service Edge was a huge win for us to enable the workforce reduce some of that security friction on them to get the job done faster.
Great use case of using some fantastic technology to secure the environment and unlock their capabilities, right? I used to tell every CISO, listen, I'll give you as many no's as you need, but you're going to own that no and make sure it comes to a yes. So great example of that, and we really do appreciate it. Mitch, how about at Wiz? Specific example that you'd like to highlight?
Well, I think a good one, and I'll keep the agency nameless to, but effectively, we've had
We're okay with you naming the agency.
Well, we've had opportunities to come in, and one of the nice things about Wiz is its rapid implementation. Essentially, we hook into the native kind of APIs of a cloud environment, and within hours you have full visibility within that environment. So, you know, in this instance, we had an agency that was having some trouble with, and it was being reflected in their FISMA scores, frankly, both from their IG and, you know, what they had to report to OMB regarding the visibility of their system, the understanding and risk to that system. Being able to get that visibility and have near immediate time to value helped them very quickly understand where the real risk was, share that common visibility picture with folks like their IG, and be able to really respond to those risk assessments that they were getting from that side, and come to a common picture of what needed to be fixed immediately and get it done rapidly. And the ability to have that shared visibility, shared picture of your environment, make educated decisions, because we do provide an understanding of risk in context. So not just that you have a list of, say, you know, 10 9.8s and like 3, you know, escalated privileges where you may not need them. Just understanding what vulnerabilities really matter because of the toxic combinations that may happen because of, say, a misconfiguration on your edge of your network that may lead to a unfortunate, you know, escalated privilege somewhere where someone has too much access, and then maybe some sensitive information. Those kind of things are real threats, but may not, in separated into silos and being reviewed, be something that people notice. So having that all in context, understanding that potential attack chain and being able to shut those things down and seeing where the real risk is first, and then mitigate the things that are next on the list in order, being able to automate that, move that fast, was enabling to them to really show and focus on building that resiliency and showing that resiliency and rapidly showing how they're able to secure their environment and making real effective change. So those are the kind of things we're really proud of, as well as kind of just creating that visibility and setting them up for success as they move into things like AI and more complexity within that environment.
Absolutely. And good point there about, you know, measurement important, you know, balancing it based on risk, super important and paramount. Larry, how about in your situation over there? Give us an example of maybe a program you'd like to highlight, or some other activity that you'd like to bring to the attention of the listening audience here.
Sure, great. Yeah, I mean, as we've seen here, data is kind of, you know, common theme, major topic, and really that's where I think Verizon has had a lot of success with helping agencies kind of reduce their analytics volume and get to more actionable data from all the data that they're collecting. So we feel we bring kind of an expertise in seeing the big picture and unifying the data and help to provide meaning to all levels of the agency's organization. So typically a customer will come to us and either need a complete security event management solution, or they've already made investment into tools that they just need a little bit of help, whether it's tuning, whether it's setup. You know, again, we can bring, you know, the full solution, or just bring the subject matter experts in that can kind of help, you know, get an agency over the top to really reduce the overall number of escalated incidents. So through kind of our use case, our creation, our indicators of compromised database, the use of AI automation through our SOAR tools, and the large amount of playbooks that our SOC has kind of created, really getting to reducing that number of escalated incidents, the false positives, and then just improving the speed of providing those alerts is really where we've seen a lot of success lately.
And highlighting the fact that they're after the data. We used to always say that, guys, that they're not coming into our environment to see how cool our networks are. They're coming in to get the data, right? So important there. Nate, top 2 priorities for you as you're focusing on your landscape. I know there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of changes going on over there, right? Your environment's changing, direction's changing, policies are changing. What's the top priority for you, top 2 for you all over there right now this year?
Absolutely. Well, the top tier for me as the CISO here is going to be the implementation and continuation of the Zero Trust roadmap that we've laid out a few years ago, right? That is going to be an enabler for the additional technologies and capabilities that we can use going forward, right? We've all talked extensively about data today, right? That data pillar is going to be critical. But along with that is identity. We already talked about a little bit here as well. So the full implementation of that Zero Trust roadmap is a continued priority of the agency to enable future capabilities and future enablements. The second one is I'm very excited about an opportunity. I think we're at a perfect place across the federal government to kind of reimagine what the risk management framework looks like and start to replace that risk in the risk management framework with a capital R, right? Actually look at the risk versus compliance. So there's a lot of great work happening within the department at the Department CISO Council. We're working through ways of what does it look like to reimagine that process. I think originally it was termed as kill the ATO, but we're going to, we had to change the verbiage there a bit. Now it's reimagine the ATO there, reimagine the risk management framework to use the tool sets to automate some of the control testing where we don't have to have folks go off and manually test or sit down for interviews and go through those processes. Luke, I shared with you a few moments ago, you as the CIO here at ICE, I've got the green scorecard here that you implemented back in 2010 here at ICE to show overall, but step away from some of that and truly show the risk executives and the agencies and those system owners where they're sitting with their known exploitable vulnerabilities. Where are you sitting with Log4j, for example? Where are you sitting with multi-factor authentication? And then step away from a bit more of, hey, do you have a 700-page security plan written that the only two people reading that is the ISSO, the information security officer who's authoring it, and the IG who comes in to inspect it, right? That's a simplification of the process, but where can we invest our time, our talent, our the taxpayers' treasure more efficiently to get done the true risk overview of the agencies?
Amen. The scorecard was a great start, but boy, it is time to move up that value chain and really focus the precious finite resources you have based on the risk associated to the environment that you're in today, not yesterday. So certainly appreciate that. Mitch, how about at Wiz? Top priority for you all over there. What's the sort of demand signal that you all are getting that you're focusing your attention on this year?
Well, in addition, I've spoken about visibility quite a bit, but I do think, because of the focus on AI and the fact that AI, is such a priority for this administration, we're hearing a lot of questions because I'll just be honest, in the environments that we protect, over 85% of them have some form of AI technology in it. And that's just a wild number, just by comparison, looking at cloud, 80%, I believe it is, or 75% have Kubernetes in them. And Kubernetes is kind of a core element of building in the cloud now, and it's been around for a decade. So it just kind of shows how it has AI enabled is in everything we do. So how do we defend that additional complexity that we're adding is a question I'm getting a lot as people add it in, because the value proposition is there. It's already out there. And frankly, it's in the tools that are being adopted. So how can we kind of understand what that does to our environment and how to protect it, and how can we also leverage it, to Scott's point earlier, to ensure that we are really making sure we are doing our jobs more effective, being more efficient around how we identify risks, but also making quick decisions about the best way to remediate those risks as well. So, we have the opportunity to do things like show, here is kind of the critical path. And here are 3 ways you can cut that critical path, whether it be through a mitigation, whether it be through a patch, whether it be through, de-escalating certain privileges to mitigate that risk. There's all sorts of ways that we can move forward and leverage AI to be smarter and more effective and more efficient. On the other side of it, I'll also mention, it's a great point made earlier regarding by Nick about the opportunity around moving faster with ATO and with getting time to value. Being able to bring developers and the security teams and operations teams closer together to understand how code that's about to be committed is going to affect the environment. But also when there is new risks involved, understanding very rapidly who committed what code when, and being able to, in this case, leverage AI often to basically provide them a fix that they can decide whether to commit in their Git. There's all sorts of connective tissue here that we can build, and it's really exciting.
Really appreciate the highlighting those very important points. Scott, you have a lot of moving parts over there. I'd like to remind everyone, CBP right smack in the middle of the economy of the United States. A lot of different areas. What are you focusing on as far as priorities for this year? Top 2.
So it'd probably shorten the segment significantly if I just said ditto to what everybody else has said. So I'll expand on a little bit of what Nate was talking about earlier. So zero trust architecture could have been, I think Greg was talking about, it could have been named something else. You could call it modernization of cybersecurity or modernization of IT. That's definitely going to
Mhm.
be one of our focuses that's going to continue. I mentioned how FY24 was kind of the start really for formalizing it through OMB. We're going to continue doing that. That's we've got a cybersecurity strategy that's from 25 to 29. We've been working through that. Not a word you'll find in Webster's, but projectizing those different goals. And so we've got
Mhm.
multiple projects that we've already been working through for FY25. We're going to hit our stride on those. We're going to make sure that we hit the goals for not just OMB. So we'll check things with a pencil, but then we're going to make it checked with a Sharpie. I've said that many times before. Is we want to make sure that we're doing it not just to check the box, but we're going beyond that. So that's one of the priorities, as Nate was talking about. The other one I'll touch on that's a little bit different than what's been said. It's not necessarily the top priority, but it is definitely one of them, and that's fostering cybersecurity collaboration. So Nate mentioned the DHS CISO Council. I've been
Mhm.
parts of different organizations. I have to say that the CISO Council at DHS is probably the most collaborative that I've been involved in my entire career. That's now over 35 years, and it's great to work with partners. So Nate's a good one that I've been working with for the past 5 years. Shane Barney before he decided to go private sector, and now his
Mhm.
successor, working with USCIS and all of the other components, and then especially with DHS headquarters, getting guidance from Hemant Badwan, now CIO McCord. So understanding what their vision is, and we're aligning our cybersecurity strategy with the DHS strategy. So we're making sure that we're keeping in pace with that, but that collaboration, and not just within DHS, but with other federal agencies and other federal partners. I've been talking with folks from Department of State, Department of Justice, understanding how we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can leverage AI and potentially someone else is doing the same thing. And then we can get speed to mission. As my boss loves to say, we're working at the speed of mission. And so doing those types of things, that collaboration, although not the top priority probably, but it's definitely one of the top priorities. And so we're working through a lot of that stuff. And again, that's one of our goals within our strategy from FY25 through 29.
Absolutely, and we really appreciate the laser focus in those areas. Larry, top priority for Verizon this year.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to continue to be an enabler for all of the agencies. While security is really an everybody kind of mindset, it's not really
Mhm.
the mission that every agency, really is looking to meet or to have. So, continuing to work with the agencies, understanding their needs, offering solutions, it's really trying to help them get to zero trust, TIC 3.0, and any other government mandate that they're looking to satisfy. And then walking that fine line between security and usability, because it's really around making not only the network secure, but usable for all the end users that everybody's trying to service. Um, and then again, AI has been a big theme, trying to stay on the AI path and making sure that we're evaluating and looking at tools and integrating those tools into our platform as best that we can. And then back to some of the earlier discussions around PQC, really continuing to plan, test, and implement, not only in our own network, but also in the tools and in the solutions that we're offering to the agencies.
Really appreciate that top line. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about priorities in the security domain. And we're going to throw it over to you, Greg, and talk about top priorities for Pure Storage. Number one priority for you this year.
It's an interesting question. It's an interesting time, right? Because those changes a couple times a year, depending when you ask me, right? But right now, what we're really focused on is seeing a lot of mandate on the change in, approach to acquisition, meaning can we adopt a model that is really eliminating technical debt, which we've actually found when you look at the cybersecurity lens as data protection has merged together with network security and not really just being perimeter based anymore. How do we have a more operationalized way to not just procure, but also iterate and grow without blowing out the budget, right? Understanding how the federal acquisition model works and adopting a more modernized approach. So how do we do that? It starts with the baseline of framework of having consistency in operation capabilities all the way across the platform and giving consistency at scale all the way across, your entire data landscape. Now, how do we do that? Number one is making sure any tools we push out on the platform can be consumed the way the agencies need to consume it, working with our FSI partners as well, and understanding these models that can be value add across larger programs. Most importantly, it's about giving predictability, right? That's the biggest thing in the world of the unknown that is cybersecurity is having a way to have some sort of predictability and consistency of iteration is really insanely invaluable to any sort of organization, whether it's very, very mission focused, whether it's really just saying, hey, I'm aligning to this principle within ZTA, or if it's I'm trying to iterate faster on PQC because something happens overnight, right? I think that's the scariest part of PQC for everybody is something could happen overnight and all of a sudden it's log4j all over again. I heard someone say log4j and I had a little shake off camera there, so I had to shock me back into reality.
For sure.
But I say all that to say it's really about how can we help agencies not only eliminate technical debt, but at the same time, iterate down that path for modernization, iterate down a more programmatic approach versus, hey, we're going to refresh this, go XYZ, put it out the bid, and making sure that everything is consistent over a 3 to 5 year span. And from the data lens, 5 to 10 years, that's a lifetime, especially in refresh cycles. But that is the path we're putting forward for a lot of our larger agencies and customers.
Absolutely. We really do appreciate the focus on technical debt and making that easier to accomplish and overcome that. Let's talk about challenges. Nate, I'm going to start with you. You talked about a lot of different things you all are doing over there. There's always all these challenges, whether it's people, money, the policies, multiple directions. What's your sort of top 1 or 2 challenges that you're facing as you move that agenda forward over there at ICE?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. The answer is yes. No, it really all those kind of fit into all those challenges. But overall,
Right.
with the significant investment from the taxpayers into the agency, obviously, and the pace of the mission, making sure that we are still able to wrap security around and balance innovation with some of those compliance and security requirements and those security best practices is definitely not really a challenge. It's more of an opportunity, right? So it's an opportunity to push the security organizations faster. I think Mitch had mentioned some of the stuff around, making the ETOs go faster, doing quick security assessments, whether that's a quick assessment to determine where we are from a risk perspective on a vendor cloud provider or whatever else, to ensure that our authorizing officials and folks have a idea of what they're agreeing to when they say make a decision that yes, we're going to move forward with this project. Yes, this project can now use production data and some of those enforcement actions. The other topic I was going to bring up is more of a challenge, and we're starting to see a little bit, and it's an unfortunate trend. We're starting to see large infrastructure providers limit the API and interconnectivity of the data that their telemetry and tools are bringing in. And what that does is it kind of slows down and it impedes some of the security operations centers from having a common operating picture overall, right? So if you have a tool set and you handle a large portion of the infrastructure, but you've disabled API connectivity to be able to tie into whether it's a SOAR product, whether it's able to tie into your SIM, whether it's able to tie into any of your reporting systems, whether it's able to tie into new AI models that are taking telemetry from all the different tool sets to build digital twins of networks to be able to run penetration tests against, right? It's the data that's going to be important to enable this, and enabling those API connectivities or connections to our security stacks is very important. It also, like I mentioned before, gets our analysts now have to go to multiple tool sets to get some of the information, where it's much easier for them to go to one where the agency has spent time and resources to make that common operating picture.
Good catch and a good call out to our partners on the panel here and to the partners in the air there, so to speak, that we need that access, and we really do appreciate that. We being Nate and crew. All right, Mitch, we're going to go to you and talk about number 1 challenge. We're trying to focus on the top challenge that you see out there right now as we push the agenda forward.
Sure, and not to say, I think it's pretty obvious that many agencies, we're seeing a lot of pushes for efficiency, right? How can we be more efficient with the dollars we have? recognizing also that we're having a very, to some of the points that have been brought up here, a shifting mission environment, shifting personnel. There's a lot going on right now. And how do we take the people we have, the excellence that we have in-house, and make the most of it? Some of that is building a common operating picture. How do we get everyone on the same page about whether it be risk, priorities, and to Nate's point earlier, some of that's reducing the friction of understanding, having the ability to kind of move things quicker and reduce the compliance burden and the friction. And that may not be through, changing policy necessarily. It may be through being able to automate some of that. In addition to that, I think some of the efficiency is looking at like where do we have multiple tool sets where they may be aligned and we may be able to condense them into either coordinate them together to make everybody more effective and have that common operating picture, or alternatively utilize one instead of many and reduce some costs. We're having those kind of talks with a lot of agencies because there's just a need to figure out how we can do things quicker, better, more effective, and cheaper, frankly. So, there's a lot of opportunity for modernization there, but that also takes some investment of time and resources. But it's an exciting opportunity, even though it obviously requires a lot of work and a lot of effort. And, with the aggressive mission sets in a lot of places and the necessary mission sets to get done what folks are looking to do across this environment. It's hard work, but we're all working and rowing in the same direction there.
Absolutely. Scott, let's talk about biggest barrier that you're facing as you're trying to push your agenda forward there.
Well, I think the sheer tsunami of change is probably the biggest barrier. I
Yeah.
think if you think about, so I talked about the cyber strategy for 25 through 29. Well, that would indicate that we had one prior to that. So it was 22 through 24, and that didn't have AI in it at all. And so then you think about the
Incredible, isn't it?
strategy,
Yeah.
the strategy shifted and had to, rightfully so, to include now AI in 25 through 29. And I'm probably biased, but I try and think about career fields that have such an exponential shift or rapid pace or evolution or whatever you want to call it compared to IT. If you think, like I said, back 5 years ago, so I think Mitch was talking about Wiz being a 5-year company. Well, 5 years ago, they probably had a direction, a plan, a strategy, just like we did. And that has probably shifted. I know ours has because of AI, because of zero trust, because of the different things, the adversary and what they're using those tools for dark AI. That's probably our biggest challenge. Fortunately, from the commissioner on down, as well as DHS headquarters on down, everybody is hyper focused on cybersecurity. You mentioned it at the beginning of this talk. My boss, the CIO, has cybersecurity on his mind as well. But that's the challenge is we're just facing so many changes in such a rapid pace. So that gets down to Nate's point. It's money, people, making sure that they're trained. And as you talked about earlier, with CBP, we can't afford to get it wrong. Whether it's trade in the economic portion of the United States, the stuff that's collected from CBP and allowing good people and good things to come in and go out, as opposed to bad people and bad things coming in and out, we just can't afford to get it wrong. So those are the things that we're facing on a day-to-day basis.
A lot of moving parts over there, and we appreciate all the work that the men and women at CBP are doing to keep this environment in tip-top shape. All right, we're going to have to wrap this up. We could talk all day. Unfortunately, we don't have the time, but we always like to end with this last question, which is paint a picture of the future. Let's talk 2 to 3 years from now. Greg, I'm going to start with you at Pure Storage. What's it going to look like 2 to 3 years from now? What are you all going to be focusing your attention on?
Definitely a lot of what we've already talked about, right? But I think what we're going to find is as greater adoption increases, as the pace is increasing exponentially, is finding that technology is the enabler, not the solution, right? Because it's one part of the part of the paradigm, right? The people in the process, right? So you can roll out multi-factor authentication, microsegmentation, have all the latest skills and capabilities, but without a strong change management backend, user adoption will fail, right? So it's all about how can we make the entire process more efficient, and more importantly, how can we then extract and automate policy and push that down to every part of the data landscape? That's going to be the biggest factor in really helping agencies align to their zero trust initiatives. The data explosion with AI is happening. So if you do have an AI initiative, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Your data landscape probably increased anywhere between 3 to 10x, right? How do you manage that data at scale? How do you keep your cloud costs from becoming exponential? It's being a mix. You have that concept of predictability, eliminating that technical debt. But also, when I look at the last and probably the most important thing is that, I'm going to use the cliche term, but it's a journey, not a destination, right? It's always going to iterate. To Scott's point, AI wasn't even in the forefront 2 years ago. Now it's front and center. How are we going to actually iterate across this? But the biggest thing I've seen, outside looking in, is the cross-agency collaboration, right? Seeing the consistencies of policy that's being implemented all the way across the board, and utilizing things like, CSRB, and making sure we have consistency and standards all the way across. Because while we can look at it from an agency level, we really got to look at it holistically as the entire federal landscape, from DoD to our healthcare partners to what we're doing with science and verticals. We need to have that leverage consistency, because they say the weakest link is always the one to be exploited first. And what I love to see is that the zero trust architecture push has not just been about, a new thing we need to do. It is something we all have to strive for, because it's in the best interest of our nation, period.
Really is a framework, really is a journey. Mitch, how about at Wiz? You're going to be 50% older at that point, 2 to 3 years from now, which is incredible to even think about that. What's it going to look like for Wiz in 3 years?
Look, we've spoken a lot of the drivers we see now, right? AI, post-quantum cryptography, automation, and the need to get faster and more efficient around things like time to value and ATO. I think, one of the things when we're talking about the federal government is the bar is not going to sit still. The goalposts are going to move. We're going to be expected to do more as well. So that's going to create new challenges. We're going to want to address new threats that are coming out. Particularly, we're seeing a huge number of supply chain threats. We're seeing supply chain threats that particularly are really kind of having a very wide blast radius. So understanding and being able to, one, understand your environment and those that you're connected into in the supply chains, whether it be open source or just a software platform you utilize, what the risks are from those connectivity. And in addition to that, how do we, when an event happens, move rapidly to mitigate and remediate those situations? Those are all things that the federal government and the policy level and those on the front lines, like Nate and Scott here, are really focused on. And I think we're going to see more and more formalization around what that looks like. But also, I think we're also going to see on the other side of it, expectations that we get more effective and efficient in our defenses, utilizing things like AI and automation in general. So there is going to be this continuing shift. And obviously, if you just watch for 5 years, a lot of the philosophies move around security, and we see our threat actor friends kind of doing new things as well that we all have to adjust to. So it's always an adventure, and I feel like there's some risk in like throwing something out there, it's
Sure.
like graduate plastics kind of thing, but who knows where we're going to be. But I'm really excited about kind of the path we're on, and kind of look forward to working with both the agencies and the policy level to make sure we're all walking together on the right path.
Absolutely. And I think that the name of the game is remain flexible. Larry, Verizon, 2 to 3 years from now, I know you all have a tight roadmap out there. You've got 5G sort of very much implemented. What will we see 2 to 3 years from now?
Yeah, so again, everybody looks at the network as kind of a commodity service now, but the amount of information and data that we collect, whether it's from our wireless network or our wireline network, are all key. And
It's huge.
yeah, in staying with the zero trust and just trying to reach all those frameworks. I'll use a different analogy than Greg did. Again, zero trust and everything is a marathon, not a sprint. And as we've mentioned a lot of the kind of sexy technologies here with DQC and zero trust and everything else. We also have to just keep in mind in the fundamentals around just doing the vulnerability scanning, the penetration testing, the patch management, right? When we look at things that are going on right now around like Salt Typhoon, they're not they're not hitting all those new things, right? It's around existing vulnerabilities and making sure we stay on track, and not with just all the new technologies, but what the fundamentals are from a security standpoint are going to be key in just, you know, maintaining that posture and really just making sure agencies stay secure.
Really do appreciate all the work that you all are doing over there. Nate, 2 to 3 years from now, you'll have 287 all bolted down, right? They'll no doubt there's going to be a lot of other moving parts over there across the interior environment. What's your focus going to be looking at 2 to 3 years from now, do you think?
Absolutely. So I think it's going to be more around a cybersecurity ecosystem that's powered by artificial intelligence and machine learning to enable smarter, more proactive overall threat detection. And that's all part of building a more resilient, adaptive cybersecurity infrastructure that evolves and keeps up with these new emerging threats and techniques and actors that we have out there, right? Our adversaries are moving very quickly, right? Artificial intelligence has been able to allow them to generate code to come after us faster, has been enabled them to learn faster, right? There's capabilities and platforms today that you didn't have when most of us went through school or even learned through on-the-job training. Our adversaries are getting much faster, much quicker, much more sophisticated. So having that adaptive, resilient environment to look at those emerging threats is going to be critical for us going forward. So those are mine.
Really do appreciate that, Scott. I'm thinking 2 to 3 years from now, we'll have the World Cup behind us and probably the Olympics in front of us. I know that's a big deal for you all, and there's a lot of preparation going on. What's the focus going to be 2 to 3 years from now for you all over there at CBP?
Well, I'm sure it'll be stress-free, without a doubt.
Yes.
So no,
You look
I'll
like
echo
you're
on.
not breaking a sweat over there, I must say. So hats off to both you and Nate.
I'll echo a little bit of what Nate said, kind of change the wording, but 2 to 3 years from now, what I would want is we used to have the perimeter facing firewalls looking out, and that was our defense, not the only defense, and we had defense in depth. But 2 to 3 years from now, what I'd really like to see is a environment that can shift and change with the threats. So we're not reactionary, we're proactive, and we can move with the threats in a much quicker pace. So whether that's utilizing AI, we have a smarter, more upskilled team, we have experts from the field. That's where I want to be in 2 to 3 years. And I'll go back to one of the things that you said. This is kind of a second thing. You mentioned get to yes, and that's one of the things that our team is trying to do as much as
Absolutely.
possible is getting to yes. But we have a much more cyber aware workforce than we did before. So now the bad part is it's probably because in their personal lives, they've had identity theft, they've been hacked, their information has been leaked or whatever. So they're more cautious in their personal lives. They're bringing that to their work lives as well. And so that's one of the things 2 to 3 years from now is I want to continue that cultural shift for everybody to have cybersecurity not necessarily in the forefront of their mind, but definitely up front in their mind, because that's our job is for the forefront. But our workforce definitely needs to continue that cultural evolution for cybersecurity to be really up front.
And I really do appreciate that laser focus. And I'd like to thank today's guests for taking the time from their busy schedules to join us for this program. I'd like to thank all of our sponsors for supporting us on this show. I'd like to thank the good people here at Federal News Network that make our program so successful and enjoyable. And most of all, I'd like to thank the listening audience out there that tune in every month. You've been listening to the Federal Executive Forum, part of the Federal News Network.